Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at Metagross VMAX. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We've had some surprise Pokemon Vs over the last couple of days that we've been having a look at. This is not a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. Metagross is one of those very popular Pokemon that does tend to see quite a lot of love. Now, our translation, of course, here comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet. And if we start off with Metagross V, we've got 220 HP, which is honestly about as high as we see on Pokemon V. A retreat cost of 3, which is honestly kind of high and kind of awkward, and we're not huge fans of it. A resistance to grass, and honestly, lately, we've seen some Rillaboom decks actually starting to see play with Mewtwo and Mew. Now, Mewtwo and Mew is going to rotate out around about when this set comes out, like 6 weeks after. But it's still interesting to note that Rillaboom has seen a bit of play lately, so that's cool. And you got a weakness to fire, and honestly here, the issue is Victini VMAX. Not because of the V is getting KO'd by Victini anyway, but when we get up to the VMAX, Victini VMAX is going to potentially be a little bit of an issue. I think that one's going to be good for a while moving forward. You are a metal Pokemon, so you're not hitting too much for weakness, which is a little bit sad, but you do have access to Metal Saucer to accelerate a little bit of energy, so you know what? That sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. Plus, you got the whole Zacian thing going on, which is always good. But what do we see here? Well, the first attack, 1 energy, 20 damage, flip 2 coins. This attack does 20 more damage for each heads. And actually, I like this. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is particularly amazingly, stunningly, brilliantly awesome. But I think it's kind of cool. It mostly depends on how many heads you hit. Because if you can hit 3 heads, then you actually end up dealing 60 damage. And 60 damage is actually pretty gosh darn good. It'll get a bunch of evolving Pokemon. You'll be 10 damage short of stuff like Galarian Zigzagoon, which is a little bit sad. But you can always play something like Vitality Band if you want to go down the donkey route. I like this because it's single energy on a basic Pokemon. And I don't think it's stunning, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is some kind of amazingly, brilliantly awesome attack. But I absolutely do think that this is okay. I think it's quite good. Not to mention, I showed you that Gardevoir that looks pretty good. And that evolves from a Routes. And Routes is weak to Psychics. You only need 1 heads here to get a KO on Routes, which could be genuinely relevant moving forward. Just something to point out here. But it's mostly a little backup attack. It's a fun little attack to get some cheeky KOs. It's not the reason to play the card. We have a second attack here. 1 metal, 1 colorless energy, 60 damage. If this Pokemon and your opponent's active Pokemon have the same number of energy attached, this attack does 90 more damage. So 150 for 2 energy. And you know what? This is kind of cool. Now, it's not terribly reliable. It's not like matching hand size. Matching hand size, you play a Marnie, you get 5 cards, your opponent gets 4, you play 1 card, boom. You've matched hand sizes, life is good. Matching energy, we've seen this before, it's not always that easy to do. Now, there are a bunch of 2 energy Pokemon around. Things like Eternatus VMAX has 2 energy, although they will 1-hit KO you, so be warned for that. And Victini VMAX is going to be using 2 energy, though, again, they do 1-hit KO you. You have been warned. If you're talking 3 energy Pokemon like Zacian, then you have to try and hit something like a Crushing Hammer, and that gets a little bit awkward. So, I like this attack. And 150 for 2 energy is clearly good. It's great if you're hitting for weakness. It's good against single prize Pokemon. But you do need to bear in mind here that this is not always going to be within your control. If your opponent's got 3 or 4 energy on, then either you're playing hammers, but we can have a conversation about how good an idea playing hammers is, or, as in this particular deck, or you've got to attach extra energy, and that can get a little bit awkward. But we do have a Pokemon VMAX coming in here as well. We go up to 330 HP, which we've seen 340, but 330 is still incredibly high. We've got the same retreat cost to freeze, same weakness to fire, same resistance to grass. Like I've said, that weakness to fire will be relevant because Victini hits 220 to a Pokemon V. And yes, that includes VMAXs. That will be very awkward here in terms of getting a KO on you. You have been warned. But we end up with a couple of new attacks. First of all, Magnetic Adhesion. Search your deck for any 2 cards, put them into your hand, and shuffle your deck. And this reminds me very, very much of Metagross GX. Now, Metagross GX was a weird one. It had a GX attack for a single energy that let you search for any 5 cards. And it was awkward because your opponent could play something that made you shuffle your hand into your deck, and you'd lose those cards. But searching for any 5 cards would pretty much set you up to win the game in a pretty phenomenal way. So we had this awkward back and forth of, do I trust it? Can I actually use this GX attack? Do I use it early game and hope? And if I don't get disrupted, I get a phenomenal setup? Or do I use it late game when I know my opponent can't disrupt me and I can definitely bring it home? It's an awkward one and one to which I frankly don't really have an answer. But the point here is that we're in that same position. But it's a VMAX, so again, we've got to evolve up out of it, and that's a little bit awkward. You see, on a basic Pokemon, I kind of like this because, give it a go, why not? On an evolved Pokemon, I do not like it nearly as much. Because it's awkward. Because it's not a turn 1 attack. It's go first, and then it's potentially a turn 2 attack. And that's not the same, ladies and gentlemen. That is not the same at all. And then if your opponent drops a Marnie, it's all for naught anyway. Sure, you get a new hand, and that's adorable. But you get a new hand without those 2 guaranteed cards that you desperately wanted. And to me, this is a pretty huge downside. If I'm waiting till turn 2 and using this attack, and then I just lose those cards I want anyway, I am feeling pretty bad about this. And that's kind of where I come down. If you can search for any 2 cards and there's no real consequence, yes, obviously I am loving it. But I am not sure that's where we're going to be, ladies and gentlemen, and that makes me extremely nervous indeed. But there is a second attack here, and again, this one is a little bit, well, I suppose it doesn't always just do what you want it to do. So for 2 energy, which is not very much, you do 100 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon's max rush attack does 150 more damage. So it does 100 this turn, and does 250 next turn. Incidentally, you don't keep going, so you don't go up to 400, then 550. It essentially does 100, and then 250, 250, 250, 250, 250. But of course, if your opponent plays something like a Boss's Orders and puts you to the bench or Escape Rope, which is back in the format now, you're not the same Pokemon when you come active again, so you just keep doing 100 damage. If your opponent makes you switch, and there are plenty of ways to do that, you are going to be in a very awkward position. You aren't going to be doing that extra damage, and that is genuinely a little bit sad here. Plus, initially, 100 damage, VMAX 2 energy, 100 damage. Eternatus is like, yo, I'm hitting up to 270. Victini's like, hey, 220 against any Pokemon V. And you're like, yeah, 100. No. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Especially by the time we rotate and GXs are gone and it's basically just Vs and VMAXs and basic Pokemon or single prize Pokemon. How is this not just a lot worse than Victini? And the thing is, you are a Rapid Strike Pokemon, but I've not mentioned it yet because honestly, where are the advantages? Sure, you've got Octillery for a little bit of extra consistency, that's lovely. But Rapid Strike Energy only provides water and fighting energy, which means you're not going to be paying this for a single energy. It is going to be a 2 energy attack. And sure, Tower of Waters reduces your retreat cost by 2, but you've got a retreat cost of 3, so this doesn't give you free retreat. So honestly, a lot of the good rapid strike tricks you're not taking advantage of anyway. I want the double energy, I want the free retreat, I'm getting neither of them. And at this point, you probably see where I'm going. I don't think I like Metagross VMAX. I don't really like the V, I don't really like the VMAX. And that makes me genuinely a little bit sad. But I am just not seeing very much to hang my hat on here at all. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think it is fine. But we've got an attack that searches 2 cards, which can easily be countered. An attack that takes 2 turns to get up to decent damage. And then on a basic, we've got an attack which needs you to match energy. An attack which makes you flip coins. So I don't think any of these are particularly good enough. So I'm giving it an ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill free Wassies. Again, I'm not calling this a bad card. I don't think it's a bad card. I think if you are playing in a limited format, I think it's fun. And I think there are plenty of things you can do here and have a lot of fun. But I don't think you can put this side by side with other top VMAXs and look at it in the same way. But I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.